Welcome to the No So Kopo with Jay and Tim. This is Timothy Holm.
And this is Jason Verney. In this Not So Korean podcast series, we talk to one another, and sometimes with special guests, about
what we know about Korea,
what we don't know about Korea,
what we want to know about Korea,
and occasionally what we don't want to know about Korea. Recording live from UK's Koreatown itself. That's an area in and around New Malden. Yes, that's the largest Koreatown and Korean community in Europe. We'll start this episode off with a quick summary of the last few days and what we've been up to.
So what have we been up to, Jason, this week?
Well, personally, I've been, Korean related anyway, I've been up to editing for this festival.
The Kingston Korea Festival.
That's correct,
on Saturday.
And this is when you should be listening to this, or rather, sorry, that's not an order. You should be listening to this. That's rather the day this is released is on the 18th. So
yeah, if you're at the festival, obviously you don't have to be listening to the podcast at the same time.
No.
But hopefully you will listen to it. Maybe later that day or during the weekend or later on.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if you are there, you'll see some videos which are on the screen, and some of those are edited by myself, by me, as Tim's been involved with one of them as well, at least.
Yeah, I shot some of the footage for
that's
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hanbok one especially. That's the main one actually.
Right.
So that's what I've been up to. There are other things I've been up to, but most of them haven't been Korean related.
Right.
There is one thing that Tim and I have been up to. Well, we sort of had something that we hadn't had before, something we hadn't done before.
Yeah, we went to another Korean restaurant. We seem to be gradually getting around to every single Korean restaurant in New Malden.
I will precursor this just with, before Tim was sort of living here, he was coming here a lot, but before he was living here, and it was last August when the government, mentioned this before, the government stupidly and cleverly did the eat out to help out, where everyone rushed to restaurants 50% off, and I was one of those people.
Right.
And I went to quite a few Korean restaurants on my own most of the time, and one of them was Palace, and it is a very different one. I'm not sure if we've spoken about this before, but I think it's one of the oldest ones here.
Yes, and it is sort of more Chinese Korean, right? Especially northern Chinese, I believe. Yeah,
that's right, and that even comes across well. For a start, you can see it in the sort of oldness of the building, even, or the frontage, and you got the word gung, which is palace.
Yeah.
But in the menu you've got northern
northern Chinese cuisine and some more familiar Korean dishes as well, but a lot of them are like jjajangmyeon, which is one of the most famous Korean Chinese dishes. Yes, I had that, and also tangsuyuk, but they do it in more Chinese style with bigger pieces of pork, and that's quite delicious. I know you don't eat meat, of course, but it was
I
quite
eat fish.
Good.
But well, that's what you had as well, didn't you? You also had the pork with
yes,
we were actually there with
sort of a sweet and sour pork. Justina, who runs the KBCE, she was there. Of course, she was on our show last week. We had an interview with her. They had that, but I had a meal which I think was off the Chinese menu as well, but it was tofu and vegetables, but I think I asked for it spicy, so I got it spicy, really spicy. But what I didn't realise, and what myself and Tim didn't realise, that it comes tofu like I haven't seen it before, and that is kind of shaved off the outside of the... I thought it was actually a lump of tofu, as you get them, a cube, but and sliced and shredded. But apparently, it's around the edges. It's kind of shaved off the skin. Yes, the skin of the tofu. Right.
That's right. And it was it's like eating pasta, really.
Right.
With some really hot peppers. But it was lovely. I mean, the palace, the place we're talking about. I have been to before once, but also myself and Timothy have bought their buns. Yeah. Now that's not currant buns. That's
right, like chicken buns or pork buns, or they have red bean buns.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah, that's quite nice. But they have them. They have a little sort of container outside, and it's kind of it does feel a bit Chinatowny because you've got that there.
Yeah.
it's interesting that if you buy them takeaway, they're much cheaper than if you buy them in the actual restaurant while you're sitting down. So
yeah, we noticed that this time.
That's a tip for anyone out there who just wants to try the buns.
And no, it's good. We won't talk too much about this food element, this food experience, but we inside though it does feel like an old Korean restaurant.
Yeah, it is,
even though it's Korean Chinese.
Yeah,
it does
it's interesting. And the waitresses don't seem to speak too much English.
I mean, that's not...
I mean, they may speak with an accent of some sort, even when they're speaking in Korean.
Yeah, probably from Yanbian province. But so that was that. So we have been up to other stuff, but as we've got an interview in this episode, which is the second part of the Hanguk Hapa interview, we wanted to kind of keep this relatively short.
Yeah, we should also mention that Hanguk Hapa, it will also be attending the festival on this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. She'll be doing some live streaming and other stuff. We're also going to be trying out a video and or live streaming from the event, as well as live, not live podcasting as in you'll hear it there and then, or here and now, because we are on that day. Yeah. The Saturday, but we're going to do our best to try and upload a lot of stuff as we go.
Yeah, just at least we'll try to record some of the atmosphere, maybe interview a few people who are visiting there, get their opinions about Korean culture and food and that kind of thing.
And that will be, if anywhere, that will be found either, it'll be on our Instagram, which details can be found under this, and also the Facebook group, Facebook page, and potentially the group later on as a video. We don't know how we're going to do that yet. Okay. But also on the YouTube channel, Jason, that's my YouTube channel, Jason K-Town Verney, if you want to find it. But live, we're thinking it will be the page or the personal Facebooks of ours, Tim's and mine, or Instagram live, of course.
Yeah, and if you are at the festival, please say hello to us. We will be bringing some business cards with us that we just had printed this week.
Yeah, we'll be shoving those.
So,
don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy. Say hello, and hope to see you there. And so, shall we go to the interview with Hanguk Hapa now?
Yeah, that's as good a time as any. So this leads. We'll go straight into where we left off last time, with. From the questions in the first part.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. So if you haven't heard the first part yet, we recommend you go back and listen to that one first.
Very interesting. Very interesting first part. Yeah. Okay, here is the interview with Hanguk Hapa.
So what is your sort of goal or mission with Hanguk Hapa? Because I know at the moment, at least, you seem to focus mainly on food. So is there a reason why you're mainly focusing on food? And what do you think food can do to bring people together in the Korean community?
I guess I chose food because I've grown up with my mum's cooking. Actually, before Hanguk Hapa, I didn't really eat out much, to be honest, because like at home we cook and it's just amazing. But when the Hallyu wave kind of came into the UK and it took everyone by storm, I just noticed that there's lots of misconceptions of what Korean food is and what it should taste like. And I know that comes with like globalization and it happens, but I just felt that there was no one really advocating what real Korean food tastes like and the history behind the dishes, because lots of people enjoy the food but they don't know how this dish came about, why it's like this. And I feel if you know the history of something, then you'll appreciate it more. So I started with not all of the dishes, but some of them I will explain the history of it. But now Hanguk Hapa has kind of gone into other things, because I've met like so many amazing people like you two and Justine, KBC, and I've met other people that are on similar missions but doing things for different communities. Like I've met with this group called Philly British, who are doing the same thing as I'm doing but for the Filipino British community. So I'm hoping something more will come of it. But really, selfishly, I started Hanguk Hapa to a more understanding of myself and who I am, because I spent so much of my childhood denying this half of me. So I feel I owe it to my Korean side to be proud of it and to share with other people who are interested. I know it's quite a niche thing, but if people are interested, then they will look at my content as well.
So just following up on that, so what do you consider to be like traditional Korean food? And what do you think about this sort of trend of English restaurants using Korean, like the word Korean as sort of a gimmick, like to say like, oh, it's a Korean burger or something, but actually it's not really Korean, right?
For traditional food, I would say like my kind of traditional Korean foods is that in a meal there will always be rice and some sort of jjigae or soup, which I think what Justine was said to us was why we have a spoon and chopsticks, because often the soup is kind of to wash down the rice. Of course kimchi needs to be present. With the food that may not be Korean, I just feel that these food companies are taking what's trending, which is Korean food, and trying to profit off of it. And I feel it's if they would say Korean inspired, it would be acceptable. But when they brand it as Korean when it's really not, or they just put one ingredient in, then it's giving people a false sense of what Korean food is, and that may be their first exposure to it. But then I guess that's what happens when something is trending. People just try and capitalize off of it.
Yeah, you were saying that, you know, you're trying to, obviously going on from the cooking, but you're trying to promote Korean food and culture, and you've spent the last couple, maybe the first couple of decades just being British and doing British things. Now, for at least the next couple of decades, maybe you're going to do this. But I wondered, that's kind of a half and half situation. But
so, as I said, at the moment you seem to be more focused on food, but you do want to expand your reach, so to speak. I was just curious, are you also interested in things like K-dramas or movies or literature or those kind of things, or is that not really part of your interest?
To be fair, I don't watch much Korean drama, but I've never really been into like soap operas anyway, even the UK ones, because I just feel it's too, I don't know, superficial. Yeah. I am into Korean music. I mean, I kind of became proud of being Korean when my cousins introduced me to Korean hip-hop, which was like years ago. So the most biggest group were Drunken Tiger, and I really liked their music. And then that's I guess that's kind of when I started to feel like, wow, like it's okay to be Korean. And I do listen to K-pop, but it's not my forte. But it does well on social media because it's upbeat and happy type of music. But I actually personally would like to go more into Korean music, but more, not the underground scene per se, but the different genres than K-pop, because K-pop already has enough coverage, but there's so many different styles of Korean music, especially like the indie scene. They've got some really great artists which maybe don't receive as much limelight because they're not following the typical K-pop route.
Yeah, I can talk from that because it's my forte. So indie, I've been to like I've been to a music festival in Seoul, Zandari Festa, and it has lots of Korean indie, and some of them are more sort of heavy. Some of them are just like almost. They could be K-pop, but they write all their own stuff. That's the difference. But also the ones that mix the traditional instruments like jambanai and things like that. And I just think, there's a massive scene there that should be sort of at the top, really. But yeah, actually mixing music with film for a moment. We were talking about this the other day because we know
you just said about Korean dramas, and they do take a lot of effort just to sit down and watch, and I tend not to do that much. But film, we noticed you did go to see a film recently, which was a hip-hop style film, which was the comedy Japan film. Yeah, but that got us thinking that obviously Korean films aren't really in the cinemas, not very often. They're not very often anyway, but we wondered, because you've just touched on Korean drama, but we wondered whether, do you watch Korean movies, like on DVD or online? Is it still something you don't sort of have time for? I mean, I understand if you don't have time, but is it something you watch, or you have any classics, or are you still trying to figure that one out?
I do like watching Korean films. I just know I have to have the time for it because I'm reading the subtitles, but I also want to really understand and try and get to a more understanding of Korean culture through watching the films. There was one Netflix that I watched, which was Itaewon Class, and even though that's kind of more K-drama, I enjoyed it because it wasn't as conventional as the usual dramas. But I think it's just something about me. If everyone's doing it, then I try not to. So because everyone was into Korean drama, like the kind of lovey-dovey ones, I just refused to watch it, even though my mum kept saying, well, you can practice your Korean this way. I said no. So I often watch kind of Korean TV shows on the YouTube, because they've got different kind of variety shows. So I often go to YouTube to watch stuff, but not per se Korean dramas or some Korean films, but they have to be quite tasteful, not necessarily.
Yeah, because they can have a bad reputation, being violent, but there's so many that aren't. And in fact, that talk we mentioned, Paul Quinn, that's happening this week, is he's talking about the good Korean films from the 2000s and the different genres and all that. But something you just said about, or I might have mentioned about not having enough time. When you started being Hanguk Hapa, when did you realise how much work it would be potentially? Whether that's a YouTube side or just constantly Instagramming or constantly meeting people like now, or going to restaurants. Did you realise what you kind of opened up? Did you know what would be involved?
To be honest, I kind of went into it blindly. Like, I just thought, I like Korean food, I want to learn more about my culture, so I'm going to do this. And I actually realised it the first time I sat with my cameraman and editor, and we edited my first YouTube video where we went to Chicken Biz in New Malden. I had no idea, because I'd never done editing before. I mean, obviously my editor did it, but I sat with them to go through how I wanted it done, and it just struck me then that, wow, this hobby that I've started is really time consuming, so I have to really want to do it and do it well if this is the hobby I'm going to choose to do. Instagram, I've learned just to always have a backlog, so I'm not constantly looking for new content, which is really helpful. And I do my captions like in advance, so I don't have to think on the spot for that. For me, the best part has been meeting people, because before this, I was kind of in a tunnel mode of just work, home, and I wasn't really meeting many new people, and I think it's hard the older you get, to kind of meet new friends. So for me, this has been the best part of Hanguk Hapa, meeting so many different people I would have never been exposed to or met had I not started this journey.
Yeah, so that just shows you, all the work that you realised that you had to put in, whether that was just helping with the editing or even just the Instagram things and thinking of the captions. But that shows that you're doing this for the culture. You're doing it, it doesn't matter how hard it's going to be, you're doing it because, it's something you've chosen to do. Otherwise, it's not going to spread the word, and, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we could just finish by asking you, what are some of your favorite Korean restaurants in New Malden specifically? But also, if you want to talk about Greater London as well, that's fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just Korean restaurants or Korean cafes?
Cafes are fine too. Yeah.
So my two, I'll start with the cafes. My two favourite cafes would be Choice, which is not on the main high street, but it's one of my favourite cafes. Firstly, the aesthetics. I really like it because even though it's not Korean style, it reminds me of the Korean cafes in Korea, which are that kind of Renaissance vintage style. And my mum is obsessed with vintage stuff. She's from that Korean era where she loves the kind of European style. So whenever I take her to Choice, she just looks so happy, and I like taking her there for that. And they sell mitsugaru, which is the mixed grain rice drink, and not many cafes do. But the one other cafe I do like that also sell mitsugaru is The Place, which is located on New Malden High Street, and they do really good coffee. And they also do some Korean cafe-style snacks that you would only really find in Korea, like the what's it? It's like this bread, honey bread.
Yes.
I haven't seen it anywhere else apart from in The Place. So, and I also know, I think it was you guys that told me they do jazz nights there, and I haven't been to one yet, but I'd like to go just to support the local kind of musicians in New Malden. For restaurants, I have quite a few. I would say the place we're at now, if I want gimbap. So we're currently at Cham Doshira, which is almost next to Choice, on the way to H Mart. And if you want really good gimbap, which is freshly made, this is the place to be. For barbecue, I would say Jingolge or Treestone, because Jingolge has been there for years, but now it's so popular it's hard to get a place, which is not in New Malden High Street. It's more on the way to Rains Park, Burlington Road. Treestone is good because you can choose the meat you want, and then you can just go next door to the restaurant to have it cooked, which is nice. But if you don't like meat, there's so many other options, like Imone, which is a small restaurant. They do really good authentic food, and Haru, which is nearby the place. If you do like fried chicken, Chicken Biz is great, and they have 2 brunches. But to be fair, I haven't been to every restaurant in New Malden, but the ones I've been to, I'm always really impressed with the prices, the food, and the authenticity of the dishes.
Thank you.
Yeah, another one of these final questions. You mentioned Imane, yeah, it's brilliant in there. They're nice people and really good service, and the food's good. They've also got like a little sort of church. They also have a church around the back, a little small one. It's like a hall. I think it's a function hall as well, but it's owned by them. You have to go down the side. I mean, if you ask the owner, they might take you there. But seeing as we recently did a video with hanbok, various hanboks, you and a few other people, and you're wearing something hanbok style today, but you have this magnificent hanbok that you wear a lot with the red colours and everything. But how did you might have told us this before actually, but how did you come to choose that one, and how did that's your main one, isn't it, I would say, but how did that end up with you, you chose it, or what was the situation?
So I think you're talking about the hanbok with the sekdong, the striped sleeves. So that was actually my mum's, and at my harabaji, my granddad's 80th, which is a huge milestone for his generation to have met, we had this huge celebration in Korea, because not only was it his birthday, but he kind of renewed his wedding vows at the same time in the same ceremony. So there was like over 1,000 people that came, and my mum wore that hanbok, and she wanted me to wear my child hanbok, but because I was in that stage where I was denying my heritage, I said to my mum, I don't want to wear the hanbok, I wanted to wear this white dress I had. And we took the family photo, and then I did have to change into my hanbok, but I just recall feeling like I didn't belong in it, and I shouldn't be wearing it because I'm not Korean. That's how I felt at the time. And I remember on the day my mum said to me, when you're old enough, you can wear this hanbok, because I really liked her one more than the one I was wearing. And I remember thinking, no, I'd never want to wear it. But now that I've become more exposed to my Korean side and I'm owning my Korean side, my mum did pass it down to me because it doesn't fit her now. And I really like wearing it because it's a good humbling reminder to myself of like how far I've come on my journey of self-acceptance. So that's why I like wearing that one, and I really like the colour scheme as well.
Reminds you of your mum's roots as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what projects do you have coming up in the near future? Anything you want to, plug? Yeah.
Well, I have something with you guys, with KBCE. So we've done the Rice Tasting Project and the Hanbok Project, which will be released, is it the 4th of September? Or is it the 18th?
With the rice one is on the 4th on YouTube, Hanguk Hapa, and the Hanbok one will be the Korean Kingston Korean Festival on the 18th. That's when that video will be shown, 10-minute video.
So I am part of this project with Jason and Tim, so those will be coming up featured with me. For HallyuCon, which is on the 18th of September, on the 4th of September, apologies. I have a segment where I'm introducing New Malden Town, just showing you around and showing you the supermarkets. And then on the 18th of September, the Kingston Korean Festival, I believe I will be hosting it, I think. In terms of my content, I'm still doing things on Instagram. I have done some interviews with some really inspiring people that I planned to put out on my YouTube, so that's kind of yet to come. It's in the process. But I've got some really cool interviews. One is with another half Korean who's also promoting food on his socials, but now he's gone to Korea. Another one is with a Black American lady who married a Korean American, and she just released a book about how Korean food changed her life, not only from being obese to being healthy, but also her mindset. And they now live in Hawaii, but she always cooks Korean food. That was a really good interview. I've got a few more, it's just in the process of being edited.
That's more than enough. It all sounds excellent, so we look forward to seeing that. And anything else you want to say, Jason?
No, I mean we'll get together again. There's other topics we can speak about, that's it. That's a wrap. We'll go back to the studio with Tim and Jay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to working with you more in the future. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
감사합니다. So that was our second part of the interview with Hanguk Hapa. We are hoping to speak to her again. In fact, we pretty much know we will be. We definitely will be speaking to her at the festival at some point, which is happening right now, depending if you're listening to this on the Saturday or if you're listening to this a week or two later than this, then of course you've missed it. Right. Apologies.
Yes, and you may have also missed the HallyuCon, which was a couple of weeks ago, but you can still watch that video on YouTube through the HallyuCon official YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're just checking it out here. Yeah, it's the one we actually had the video that I edited and Tim was involved with the filming. That was featured as part of that, but that was basically when that was broadcast live on HallyuCon official YouTube channel. There's actually a breakdown on that of all the different things that are on different times from that day. So it's still on YouTube because she mentioned it in her interview. So I thought
you can find the timestamp for the K-food related sections of that video. Yeah,
that's right.
That's in the description.
Yeah, and loads of other stuff. And if you like, K-pop or whatever, dare I mention it, or K-food or other stuff, and then there's loads of stuff included in that.
Yeah.
And she does talk about a lot of interesting stuff there. Her being a halfie, of course, and it's a lot to talk about. And food being one of her specialist subjects.
Yeah. And so if anyone has any other questions for her, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer those in a future interview that we may have with her.
Yeah, she might be on and off social media at the moment due to other commitments, but she's
quite busy lady, yes, but very open to talking with us. Yeah.
That's right. So, so that's that. We're going to have another, all being well, the next episode, which we're hoping to have in a week's time, will be regarding the kimchi making that we did with the art, sort of combined with an art event. It's very difficult to explain until you hear the episode.
Yeah,
and we had an interview with the artists themselves.
Yeah, so there was this very unusual sort of art piece which was used as a kimchi mat to make kimchi. And it was done by this 2-person group. I'm not sure if they're an actual couple.
I think they're part of a bigger group, though. Yeah.
Yeah, they're called the Decorators, and so this will be used as part of the London Design Week festival, which is happening next week, and you can see that exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Yeah, you'll be able to see what we took part in. You'll probably be able to see us as well if you really want to.
But we will be there to check it out, probably on the 23rd, but we're not sure exactly.
September. Yeah, we're going to be there. We're not part of the art. We're not going to be standing there like.
No,
models.
But we will be in the video, which will be there.
That's right, yeah. But anyway, that's the. But even without us there, it's just a crazy sort of weird concept, but really good at the same time.
Yeah.
But as I say, we're hoping to have that next week to coincide with the art week.
Yeah, we did a short interview with the Decorators, as they call themselves. It's only a few minutes long, but we will incorporate that into the episode next week.
Yeah, you'll hear that then. So we normally finish off the show with a couple of bits of news. We are going to just talk briefly about. Well, there was a certain band, a certain well-known British band that's known very famously in the world, beginning with C. I'll just say Coldplay. Doing a collaboration with a very famous. I don't know why, but very famous K-pop group.
Starting with B.
B. Have got a single coming out combined. Now I couldn't bring myself to mention it, but at the same time I felt like I should, just because it's Korean English, and it's also we were saying that it's got lyrics in
both English and Korean, so it is a kind of Korean-British cultural exchange of sorts. Whether you want to call it real music or not is another question. I know Jason is not a personal fan of K-pop, and even for myself, I'm not a huge fan of K-pop either, but I can see certain merits to the fans of it and how they've used it in positive ways. But the music itself is another thing.
And what goes on behind the scenes is a very dark place as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But also talk about dark places. We've the other bit of news, and this isn't really news because it happens so often, or at least myself and Tim have probably heard it for the last decade or 2 decades. I think maybe for Tim anyway. You know, there's been another missile launch from both South Korea and North Korea.
Right.
Wasn't really covered that much on all news channels.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are sort of getting tired of hearing about these things at this point, especially in South Korea. They barely even mention it on the news, I think, these days.
Yeah, it's not. When you're in South Korea, especially in Seoul, as you can vouch, you wouldn't know anything's going on there. It's a great place to be, and you don't really notice that. You've actually been briefly to North Korea, haven't you?
I did take a short tour there. It was only like a day trip, but it was very, very interesting. This was when relations between South and North were much better than they are at the moment. But I could talk about that as some other.
We will do. I'm sure.
Some other episode. Yeah.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. So if you go to the KF today, which is the 18th, then I hope you enjoy it. Maybe see you there.
Yeah.
And if not, then I hope you catch our snippets, which will be recorded from it, sort of semi-live, as in live at the time, but posted late. And,
check our social media on Facebook and Instagram. Yes,
definitely. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's it. And we'll basically we'll play out with this usual song, which is by Kaya, New Arirang.
Yeah.
Which is actually, that is another thing to mention. Right. There's some Arirang related stuff at the festival.
Yeah, there will be some music and also some traditional Korean games, folk games.
And some new Malden's Got Talent, actually. I should probably mention that. But I think Justina mentioned that last week in her interview. But anyway, we're going to play you out with Kaya's new Arirang from their album Korean Breeze.
And we'll see you next week.
Yep.
안녕히
계세요.
Oh, and happy Chuseok, everyone.
Happy Chuseok.